Leadership is taking people on a journey where there's a vision, guidance and purpose.
Good leaders lead with the heart as well as the head.
Leadership means doing the right thing for the right reason, no matter how difficult it might be.
You're listening to Leadership Unwrapped, a podcast where you will hear from people who are living leadership every day.
Hi Niamh, really interesting conversation with Chloë about self-compassion. Really got me thinking about how tough we can be on ourselves and just taking that time to think about it and maybe to make it a more deliberative practice that we really reflect on being kinder to ourselves. I was just blown away when she talked about, compassion being turning kindness inwards, really. Something that we don't do. We're usually doing it for everyone else and not thinking so much about how we do that for ourselves as well. So yeah, I found that such an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's something that really stuck with me afterwards, and I was thinking about it, is how easy that we can naturally do it for other people, but how a lot of the time it has to be something much more intentional that we do for ourselves. So her highlighting this, I think, is brilliant. Yeah.
And I think the fact that she said, I think she was saying, how would you speak to your friend about that? And that's the way that you should speak to yourself about it. That sort of was a really simple technique, a practical thing that you could use to stop yourself going into that negative thinking, that spiral of negative thinking about yourself. And such a practical technique, it just really struck me as really helpful. And I think the journal that she talks about is going to be really helpful for people.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of Compassionate Co, with her new company as well, because I really do think that the journal is just the start of what she's putting out, because even the content that she's giving, lots of insights and tips and things to just for your day to day. And I know she mentioned that there's breath work on the way, so it's a really exciting space that she's opening up.
Yeah, I thought so as well. And I know I said in the chat to her, I started out in my university part of my work from a health promotion perspective and teaching that area, and this was it brought me so back to it. And it was really practical and it was so health promoting. I just loved the conversation.
Yeah, the fact as well that she brings, I know we speak about this, so I don't want to get into too much, but we were saying that it's the experience that she has, the passion that she has behind it, and then also her expertise in the area as well. I think it's like everything just came together in the right way for something like this to happen.
Yeah, and her journey is really moving. Yes. I didn't know her story until she talks about it in our conversation. I was really moved by her resilience and her determination. It's just incredible, really, and that she's turning it into something really positive. It's really inspiring for our
powerful
listeners. Yeah. So listeners, hope you enjoy it. Our guest today is the wonderful Chloë Enright. She's a public health practitioner, passionate about public health, health promotion and mental health, and she recently launched a new business called Compassionate Co, which we're going to chat lots about over the next while. It's a mental health promotion business focusing on the concept of self-compassion and empowering others to become more self-compassionate, which links really closely to better health and well-being. Chloë, you bring a wealth of life experience to this important development. And during the podcast, we're hoping to chat to you a bit more about this. And we are so delighted that you managed to fit us into your busy schedule. So you're very welcome to chat to us today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm delighted to be on.
So we might start, Chloë, with just tell us a little bit about your background.
So I suppose as I was growing up, I always had a huge interest in health, but I wasn't sure what area I wanted to go into. So I did the public health BSc in UCC. And I have started my master's recently. Career-wise, I have experience in health communications and epidemiology, and I've been working in health research for the last number of years.
Okay. And you are also, while working full-time, I take it now, launching this business?
Absolutely, yeah. So Compassionate Co launched 4 weeks ago. Yeah, it's not even a month old. Yeah. So pretty new. Was kept very busy with the masters, working full time.
Yeah,
and
it's like 3 full-time jobs.
Yeah. And launching the business, but very passionate about it, and in particular about the area of mental health. And that was the backstory, I suppose, to the development of Compassionate Co.
I'm really looking forward to hearing a bit more about the motivation behind this, which we'll chat about in a minute. But just give us a sense, where do you find the time to cover all these three things? How do you manage it?
Lots of early mornings.
Yeah. Niamh knows all about them. Yeah, I think it's the early mornings. Yeah, like going to bed early. I'm in bed at 9 o'clock every night.
Wow,
I'm an early morning person. I'm really productive in the morning. So Yeah, it's just time management, like real stringent time management. So yeah, the master's work will be done in the morning because I find it hard to do in the evening, and then the business prep, that was mostly in the morning as well. Yeah. So I think for the business, I think, and even for the masters, I really enjoy them and I'm passionate about them. So I think that when you have that element of passion and when you have that element of enjoyment, it does make it a lot easier to get up and do these things. It's not, something that I don't enjoy.
And I think when you're motivated, when you can see the value of what you're doing and the value for other people too, I think it gives you that extra.
It gives you that push and that drive. Yeah.
But absolutely. It is a good structure. Like, I mean, I know not everyone is a morning person. Not everyone would want to get up. Some people just work better in the evenings or whatever. But like, you still have the evenings for yourself when you structure your day, that you're doing that kind of productivity piece at the start of the day, your working day, and then you still have the evenings to do whatever you want.
That's it, absolutely. And my work day with the HSE, it's done at 4:30. So my evenings are my own, and if I want to go, and I like having that, I think it's really important to have that protected time, and having that to meet you for a walk or whatever else it is. I think it's important to have that downtime as well. So that's protected time for me 100%. Yeah.
So I'm a huge advocate for health promotion, and when I started in the university, health promotion was the area that I was working in.
Right.
So I'm delighted to talk to a fellow health promoter. And what was that motivation to go into health promotion when you did your degree? What drew you to that?
I think throughout my teenage years, I always had a huge interest in health, like I mentioned, but it was more physical health. I got into exercise and really healthy eating, and I initially wanted to do dietetics, but I knew that I had an interest in it, but I wanted something broader than that. Okay. And I think that public health as a discipline is really broad. Like, you have the health promotion, health protection, and epidemiology. So it is a really broad degree, but you can make what you want of it. And if you want to go into the disease surveillance, or if you want to go into the health protection, which is more your legislation, policy, procedures, or the health promotion aspect, public health is a really broad discipline that gives you the opportunity to go into any. So I always had the interest in health promotion, but ended up working in health protection. And I always had that interest. And I think this is where the draw from Compassionate Co as well has come from, because I love health promotion and I love everything that it's about. And while health protection is really important, the three disciplines are as important as each other. Behaviour change is really important. And that ultimately is what health promotion is about. And that has really fit into Compassionate Co.
Yeah, and I think being thoughtful, about what influences our thinking and around behaviour change and what works and what doesn't work. Fairly complex.
Absolutely.
But really interesting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So let's talk business.
Okay.
And we've seen some of what you're working in Compassionate Co, and it's amazing. I really like it.
Yeah.
So maybe do you want to tell people what Compassionate Co is about first, and then we might talk specifically about the journey that brought you to that.
Sure, yeah. So Compassionate Co is a mindful-based intervention. It's a mental health promotion business, and it focuses primarily on the concept of self-compassion. So self-compassion is the process of turning kindness inward. And too often, I think that we all have the skill of being compassionate and we're able to put it outwards to other people, but it's learning to turn that inward is really, really important. And it's a really important, I say, a coping skill. And it's a tool to have in your belt for dealing with difficulty, which we all do to varying degrees throughout our lifetime. And the overall objectives of Compassionate Co are to firstly focus on self-compassion as a concept, to enable people to learn the concept and to break it down a little bit. I suppose that's where my research skills and my analytical skills come in. I have the ability to interpret various information and break it down for people. So that, also promoting open discussion about mental health. That's something that I feel really passionate about. Yeah. And based on my own story, I think it's something really important that I want to integrate into the business. And also on that, to use my research skills to give people information about the burden of mental health within Ireland, that it's very much there and it's not spoken about enough. We've come really far, but not far enough, in my opinion. And so, it's a variety of things, but ultimately it comes under the umbrella term of mental health promotion.
And do you think, I love this turning kindness inwards, I love it.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a shortage of self-compassion? Is that what you think? Is that what's motivating you?
Yeah, 100%. And
Okay.
I think that, you know, myself as a person, I didn't have it. I was really unself-compassionate, and it's something that I have learned, and that's why I feel so passionate about it since I have become educated on the concept, and since I've learned it. Even being in a room with people are so critical of themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
And we automate to self-critiquing mode rather than self-compassion. But even when we are going through really difficult times, and we all, like I said, we all know compassion. If I ask people, or if I ask either of you, have you been compassionate to a person in your life? You're more than likely going to say yes. So we all know how to do it, but it's just to learn how to turn that inward a little bit.
What is it that you think, and I know I don't know, you may or may not have an answer, I'm just wondering what you think of like why we find it easier to be compassionate to other people than to ourselves.
Yeah, good question.
I don't think there's one short answer to it, you know what I mean?
not
But just
easy,
yeah.
I think that we're our own worst self-critics. And I think that people think that self-critiquing is motivation. Some of the time, you know what I mean? I think that if you, in your own opinion, you're not doing enough in a certain task, if you say, oh no, I need to do more, and you're really pushing, and you're self-critiquing, people see that as motivation sometimes, and they draw on that. Whereas in actual fact, it has the opposite effect in that it sparks up our nervous system, and we become more, it's probably counterproductive.
Yeah.
Because we're making ourselves more agitated and more in situations, you know. But I suppose, Niamh, if I ask you, this is something that I draw on in the journal, if you're going through a difficult time, I say, write down what you would say to a friend in the same situation. You're going to speak really differently to yourself than you would to a friend.
That's so true.
You know, and I think it's quite complex. Like I could,
definitely, yeah.
I guess self-respect, self-acceptance, you know, self-love, but there's probably a lot of complexities going on there.
Yeah.
That could be broken down.
It's very easy to default into that self-criticism, isn't it?
It is.
Like it's
Because it's the automatic, isn't it? Like if you're speaking to someone else, the automatic reaction is to be kinder and, you know, to try and
for sure,
you know, do whatever you can to help that person. Whereas the automatic for yourself is a bit, I shouldn't have done that. Like I drew this on myself because I did this. It's just interesting to think. Like I wonder, is there also an element of like the fear of being, I know we do this a lot in Ireland, like the fear of thinking you're great or, you know, people say, you know, I wonder, is that part of it? Like there's, as you say, Chloë, there's probably loads of things that feed into it that are, and very different for different people as well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely complex. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
And it is, I mean, it sort of becomes, it can very easily become the pattern too, you know, if you're
100%.
if you're harsh on yourself. And often when I'm working with people, I hear how hard they are on themselves, and they're doing amazing stuff, but it's always the bit that they haven't done that you focus on instead of all the amazing stuff. I'm guilty of it myself. Instead of the good stuff that you do. And I've often said to one or two colleagues, like, is there another stick you could find there now to beat yourself up with, because you're doing so great? And I do it myself. So it's like, why are we wired into that negative so much more easily then? And maybe it is about, well, you don't want to be sounding too full of yourself, but there's a bit more to it too.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's funny even when you're talking to someone too, isn't it? Like, and if you were about to say something positive about yourself, you'd say, "Oh, I don't mean this now," and you know, I'm not saying this to talk myself up, and then say it. Do you know, you give like almost that. What would you say? Like
that buffer into it.
Exactly.
Like
to glide into
disclaimer almost.
A disclaimer. That's the word that I'm looking for. So you don't come across in a certain way.
Yeah,
it's funny.
It's probably the perfectionist in everybody too.
True.
Do you know? The book that I'm reading at the moment, it's on self-compassion, and there's a really good story in it that this girl, she baked a cake for her friend, and she couldn't get the regular chocolate that she used, and the whole, you know, her friend was delighted with the cake, and the whole time during the party, Rachel, this girl, she couldn't focus on anything, only the fact that the cake wasn't as nice because she didn't use the same chocolate that she used. She became all consumed by this negative narrative that it wasn't good enough, and she put herself into such a bad mood, she ended up leaving the party. And I think that's, you know, I was reading and I was like, geez, That's and we can use that example for everything. If things don't, and things are never going to go our way, life isn't perfect all of the time, and people aren't perfect, and if we allow ourselves to become all consumed by the things that don't go our way all of the time, we would probably spend a lot of time in that negative self-critiquing and allowing it to navigate our mood. And it's important to realise, I suppose, that not every situation is perfect. Nobody is perfect.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good example.
Yeah. And isn't the worst part about it that you can pick fault
with everything. Yeah,
so if you get into that space,
and you start it all,
you do it about every single thing, like no matter what achievement you've made, what nice gesture you've done for someone, like making the cake. If she organised the whole birthday party and it was a big surprise, did the cake, the balloons, the everything, you didn't have the chocolate, like, no matter what. I don't know, if you get into it's very easy to see that when you get into that frame of thinking, how it is, and it applies to every area of our lives. Do you know what I mean? Even work. Like if you get into that and you make a mistake and it's the end of the world, and it's not. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody makes mistakes, and it's in that having self-compassion. Okay, I've made a mistake, it's okay. Everybody makes mistakes, relate to other people. Give yourself a bit of kindness and compassion that you need in that difficult moment, and bringing mindfulness in that I'm not going to become all consumed by this and let myself go in the negative narrative. So that's self-compassion. Yeah.
I even find it with the teaching, like when we do an evaluation of a module, and like you could have out of 100, you could have 99 going, yeah, great, and you could have one that would say didn't like X, and you nearly zone in on the one.
And
it kind of stays going around your head, and it's like you almost dismiss the 99 that were like, no, this was really great, thanks very much. It's really interesting.
That's actually really, like when we got the feedback for the last module that we did, like we had both read it individually because it was sent via email, we'll say, but then I remember we were talking about it and you said to me, did you see the feedback? How'd you find it? And I was like, and I went to the one, with the two of us went to the one thing being like, how will we improve on this for the next, instead of even I don't think we even spoke about the positives.
No, I don't think we even acknowledged it. I think we went straight into, and that's happening a bit in society even now. It's like the next thing and the next thing, as opposed to going, you know what, they were great students and we loved talking to them and it was fantastic. And to take that space to just say, okay, job well done, there's more to do, but like that's really interesting.
I actually did really study them on that I think that based on, I can't remember the exact details of it, but basically in essence the main message was that we find it easier to automate to the negative. Our brains find it easier. I think actually it may be that, is it to do with threat
or surviving?
That is surviving, that we focus on that, and that's why we automate to the negative automatically, and we can change it, but it's not really our fault that it happens. Do you know what I mean? It's just that's the way that we're wired. That's exactly it. So it's interesting. We're very complex.
No, I really like, and I just really like, even when you hear the word self-compassion, like, when we first spoke about, because I suppose, our listeners don't know, myself and Chloë are really good friends. Like we grew up together. And, but when you first mentioned it, like even when you're thinking about the word self-compassion, you're like, it's like, it's just the terminology alone just gets you really thinking about, right, this is something that I can do for myself. Even within your friends, your family, your relationships, well, obviously it's important to be compassionate to each other. Of course. But like, no matter how compassionate people are to me or how much like empathy they show me, anything like that, it doesn't if I'm not practicing it for myself, or if I don't feel that way, my own feelings towards myself and what I'm doing, it matters so much more, and they're going to impact me much more.
100%.
So it's just hugely important.
It is, absolutely. And even on that, if, for instance, there's a certain body part that you don't like, and you're continually telling yourself, I hate this part of my body, I hate this part of my body, and somebody is repeatedly complimenting you, you have this negative core belief that you hate this part of your body, and this part of your body isn't good enough. And no matter how many times somebody else tells you, you're not going to be listening to them until you start to break that negative core belief down yourself, and that's self-kindness. But absolutely agree with you. It's all linked, and it starts from the inside out. Like, I'm a big believer in that the inner work. When you work on the inside, I use the analogy of a tree all the time with uni, but when you work from the inside out, you blossom. And when you nourish a tree from the inside, or when you nourish a tree, it blossoms from the inside out. And that's like ourselves, when we do work on ourselves, you can blossom. And you, with that negative narrative, I think that we can halt ourselves from our full potential, our full ability to self-grow, because we're saying, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, no way, I'm not doing enough in this area. And you become self-limiting, you know what I mean?
That's very true.
And until you start to break down these negative core beliefs that you may have ingrained from whatever, you are halting yourself from achieving your full potential, and it's just to start chipping away at those. And that's I touch on that in the journal, just to start chipping away at negative core beliefs. But it's so important.
There's like a choice here, isn't there? That's
Absolutely.
like, it's almost like a mindful moment where you're going to make a choice to be more self-compassionate.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that you do sometimes. I think, if you're caught up in the busyness of life, you miss that you're not being self-compassionate.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
And you don't always hear the way that you talk about yourself. It's really until somebody gives you that little piece of feedback to say, gosh, you're very hard on yourself, that you then realise, I am actually very hard on myself. And where's that coming from? Or that's interesting, I think.
And that's actually the first pillar to self-compassion. So there's 3 pillars.
Here you are.
Yeah.
There now.
See, that's a nice segue into it. Yeah.
Know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So it's mindfulness is the first pillar. And the reason that is the first pillar is because it's increasing awareness to how you're feeling, where you're feeling it in your body, doing those mindful body scans to say, okay, I'm being really hard on myself right now. I'm saying, Chloë, you're not doing enough. And I'm saying, okay, I'm feeling this in my chest a little bit. And that's the first pillar that I delve into in the journal, because to be self-compassionate, you need to have that awareness for what's going on and the narrative. And then the second pillar is self-kindness. So I mentioned that is challenging negative core beliefs that you may have ingrained. So I'll touch on this in the backstory, but for me, one negative core belief that I had ingrained was that I'm not social enough. And the way that I challenged this negative core belief was I started writing down examples of where I displayed a positive quality yesterday, the day before.
Okay.
And then I'd align that positive quality. And Neve and I would go for walks most mornings, and I would say, I met my friend Neve for a walk. And then my positive quality, I am social. And that's all you need, is to start chipping away bit by bit at those negative core beliefs that you may have ingrained, and saying, okay, there's actually evidence here that maybe I am social, and maybe I do have that bit of social, you know what I mean? And that, for me, I just kept chipping away at it, and I was like, I am really social, and sometimes we can just become wrapped up in these negative core beliefs, and they become really self-limiting. And that's all you need, is that to display evidence that belief isn't 100% true. And you start chipping away at it. And then the third pillar is connectedness. So that's that relating to other humans. I'm not alone through difficulty. Everybody goes through difficulty throughout their lifetime. I don't have control over everything, because we don't. And too often external situations impact our mood and determine it. And in that pillar and within the journal, I ask, like I said, how would you speak to a friend in the same situation? So it's relating to others and increasing that common humanity. That's what it's referred to in the literature. So they're the 3 pillars: mindfulness, self-kindness, and connectedness, and they come together to form the concept of self-compassion. So it's something that we can learn, but I suppose it's just to break it down. And I think that it's fine to say, turn your kindness inward. How do you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
And the journal,
how-to.
And that's why I've developed the journal. It's guided to bring you through the process of mindfulness, self-kindness, and connectedness.
So will you tell the listeners a little bit about the journal, that, and you can tell them where they can find it too, but just tell them what it is and why they might be interested in it.
Yeah. So I suppose if you resonate with, I have these negative self-beliefs, I feel when I'm going through a difficult time, it's all about me and I'm just focused on this difficulty, it's all consuming. If you want to improve mindfulness, the journal is for you, and I think if you want to improve self-awareness, it's a really good tool to do this. And it's called Your Self-Scribbler. That's the name of the journal.
Nice.
Your Self-Scribbler, because obviously it's all about an individual experience. And in the beginning of the journal, I go through plenty of examples. There's lots of examples that you can draw from. There's a wheel of emotion, because I know that mindfulness sometimes can be a bit, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And I think people are like, what does that mean? And I included a wheel of emotion with lots of terms of what you might be feeling or whatever. So lots of examples throughout the 3 sections, and then you're brought into your blank journal entries. It's not dated, but I would encourage, this is like anything. It's like exercise, you obtain optimal benefits if you're doing it frequently. So I would encourage frequent use of the journal for sure, but definitely 3 to 5 times a week, to really start to get into the swing of it. And don't get me wrong, it takes work. Like I've done this, but I still find myself, I'm looking in the mirror, I don't like that, and I'm saying, Chloe, stop that thought now. You know what I mean? So it definitely takes work, but oh my God, is it worth it? And when you learn self-compassion, it's a tool to deal with difficult emotions, and like we all experience them, be it that it's trauma like I had, or grief, or be it that it's work stress day to day. Like sometimes you just need to say, it's okay, everybody goes through this, I'm going to be fine. And just taking that moment to give yourself compassion. And on Compassionate Co on the Instagram, I put up actually a mantra that you can say to yourself when you are dealing with those difficult thoughts and difficult emotions. But that is what is delved into in the journal, and I love it. I'm so passionate about it because it works really and truly. When you learn self-compassion, the literature shows it leads to increased happiness, increased life satisfaction. It does. It does.
Where can readers, or listeners, and writers, where can they find it? Just
anyone
at all.
So I sell the journals online. www.compassionate-co.com is the name of the website.
We'll put that in the
bio. Cool, perfect. And obviously then I'm on Instagram, Compassionate Co, Facebook, Compassionate Co, and LinkedIn as well, Compassionate Co. So the same in the 3 channels.
What I think is really important here as well, and I'm taking just a little bit of a step back to what you said there, Chloe, but what can be, I would assume, damaging to something like this as well, and I see it sometimes when people compare their grief or their struggles. I think it's an easy thing to fall into when you're feeling, not 100% for whatever reason it is, and you're saying, but like, I should be fine because X is going through this and Y is going through this. And I know sometimes something substantial happens in our lives and we say, okay, what I was worrying about last week actually isn't that bad, and that's fair enough. But everyone, as you've said before, Chloe, like everyone is going through difficulties. Absolutely. And everyone will go through difficulties at some stage in their life. We all hope that we won't go through significant difficulties, but I think that's an important part of this as well. Just because it's not a horrendous event doesn't mean that we can't benefit from this.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that it's all relative to individuals. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're always going to have someone you can compare yourself to that's going through something worse or something less. And I think that this is individual, and this is something that you can learn to cope with whatever difficulty you are dealing with. And it's all, no difficult thought or emotion is should be belittled, or and that's the self-critiquing. I shouldn't be feeling like this. It's somebody else is going through something way worse. It's to validate that you are allowed to feel that, and it's okay to feel that. Do you know what I mean? And to give yourself that compassion rather than, I shouldn't be feeling like this. And it's not helpful at all to engage in those types of discussions with yourself. So,
and I really like the way that you frame it as a skill as well.
Is,
I was actually thinking about you the last day because I was listening to something and they were talking about just it was about like being in your 20s or your early 30s, and this kind of not knowing what you want to do, and just being unsure of what direction you want to take your life in and so on. They were talking about the potential. They were talking about all the positives of moving away, but also the potential as well that you could be moving away or making some big move, really running away from something else. And regardless of where you are in the world or what you're doing, you have you and you have your own mind.
That's it.
And that's what you have with you. I suppose if you're not being self-compassionate, for example, and you're trying to get out of a situation you're feeling negative about, you will still be not being self-compassionate when you're in a different situation. So I love how you frame it as a skill.
It is,
no matter where you are or what difficulties you're facing,
what you're going through,
you have that.
Absolutely. And it just, that's why I say it's to have it in your coping mechanism belt, just because we all have so much difficulty throughout our lives. We do, you know what I mean? So I think that to have it, and sometimes I think with self-compassion as well, when we do mindfulness and the self-kindness and connectedness, sometimes when you are practicing self-compassion, that's enough to just acknowledge that the feeling and that the emotion is there, and rather than suppressing and then it coming out in other ways and building and building and building and then exploding, sometimes all we just need is that acknowledgement and that self-acknowledgement. And I use it's like children, when a child falls and they're upset, they're having, they're experiencing a difficult time, they come to mom or dad or guardian and they are caressed, and it's okay. They release the emotion, the difficult situation is acknowledged, and they go and they forget about it. Sometimes we just need that, you know, and we need that as adults as well, and we don't give ourselves enough of it. And this allows you to do that. You know what I mean? It allows you to learn that and to give yourself that. When you are going through difficult times, or difficult emotions.
There's a piece in it too about that nothing is forever. It passes, and you just need to help yourself help it pass. That's the other, you know. Yeah,
allow it to be with it, and you know, I'm not saying that self-compassion is going to make you happy all of the time. It's, you know, but it's to allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling. You know what I mean? Be it happiness, be it sadness, be it whatever. And go with what you need at that time, you know.
So what brought you to this? I mean, it's a big thing to take on top of work. So, and you're hugely passionate about it.
Yeah.
So do you want to give us a sense of what brought you to thinking like this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So my interest in mental health stemmed from personal experience. So I was in a very serious car accident where I nearly lost my life. It was almost 7 years ago now at this point. And after that, you know, obviously the accident itself was really traumatic, severe psychological trauma from it, but I had a huge amount of physical injury.
Okay.
And that physical injury was, I had a lot of broken bones throughout my body. I broke my back. I perforated my ileum, so that's a small bowel. That has a 30% survival rate. So, you know, my body was sent... I talk about the fight and flight response, and I think that that's a term that people are becoming more familiar with from social media. But I was sent so far into that there was huge amounts of psychological trauma.
Wow. That's awful.
And the accident, and then the period of time that followed, it was a prolonged period of, you know, we don't know if you're going to survive, we don't know if you're going to be paralysed. This was the narrative that was going on. So I was up there in that fight or flight for such a long time. And thankfully I survived. I'm not paralysed, and I came out relatively okay, but a lot of physical aids, you know, wheelchair, Zimmer frame, a lot afterwards. And really, it turned my life upside down. It did. And, you know, when I did overcome the physical injury, you know, even when I was discharged out of hospital with those physical aids, I really saw a huge decline in my mental health. And in hindsight, when I look back now, it was already there when I was in hospital, you know, flashbacks and not being able to sleep and completely on edge all of the time. But when in the months that followed, it really, it took a huge turn. It did. And it was about 4.5 months afterwards. And I was at the point now where I was really struggling to get out of bed. But I had no words for this. I was 19. I didn't know, I didn't have the vocab for it.
Yeah.
And my parents, obviously, of course, were frightened out of their lives, you know what I mean?
Can you imagine?
Really, really difficult to watch. And they referred me to, or made an appointment with my GP, went, and I started talk therapy. I started counselling 3 times a week. It was really, really intense. And I was subsequently referred to a psychiatrist. When I was referred to that psychiatrist, I received the diagnosis I had severe depression and severe post-traumatic stress disorder. So even when I got those diagnoses, I didn't really... You know, I was like, I knew that I felt really different, but the only way that I could, that I could put words in it, I was telling my parents, I just feel like a different person. I felt like I was lost. And, you know, I had been that person that I was so social, so bubbly. I was just finished first year college, going into second year. I was, you know, loved going out all the time, socialising, a real, you know, outgoing person. And I suddenly became someone that I felt low all of the time. My emotion was really, really heightened, and found it very hard to cope with day-to-day difficulty and day-to-day emotions. And it festered into so many areas of my life. When I went back to college in second year, my experience in second year versus first was completely different, in that I didn't really make any friends. One friend was what I made, and versus the year before, I had a huge amount. I started having panic attacks when I was in Cork, you know, and it was just, throughout the whole thing, it was a really, really hard experience. And I just, not that I came to terms, I came to accept, but I came around to that I now was a different person because of this experience. I was really fearful all of the time, really anxious, felt really low all of the time, really irritable, and I thought that was now who I was. So this went on for about 4 years, and I really struggled. All of this time I was going to counselling and doing everything that I could have, really wanted to get back to that person that I was before. But all I was doing with the counselling was the glass was, we'll say, 100% full of liquid, and I was just emptying out I was tipping it all the time, but because I wasn't getting the intervention that I needed, which was cognitive behavioural therapy, I now know, I was just emptying out rather than getting the tools to cope with.
Okay.
So went on, just came to terms with this is now who I am, this is Chloe now. And, my mum and dad could see that I was really frustrated with this. And my mum said to me, look, one day, this was about 4 years after the accident, would you try CBT? And I said, I'll try anything.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'll try absolutely
Fair
anything.
enough.
So I went, and oh my God, it changed my life. It really and truly did. And initially when we went, we did a lot of EDMR, which is like this, I don't know what it stands for, but basically you have these toggles in your hands and you close your eyes, and when the vibrations are in your hand, your eyes are going over and back. And what it does is it induces you into an REM sleep. So it brings images to the forefront of your mind that you haven't dealt with and that need processing.
Oh, wow.
So it sounds bizarre, but it's amazing. It really is. And did a lot of that initially. And then we started working really hard on mindfulness. Bringing that awareness to how you feel, where you're feeling it in your body. We worked on that for months. And my therapist, she'd send me home a lot of homework. And I worked really, really hard on it because I really wanted to change or to get back to who I was before. And she said to me, when, we were talking about mindfulness, and she said it's really important to work on this. And I read a book since, and they had the analogy of a sky. And in the book, it said that when you're mindful, you are the sky, and you're looking down and all of these purple birds floating over and back. And the purple birds represent your thought and emotion. But rather than embodying each bird, you are looking down with a conscious awareness that they're there, but you're not embodying each bird. And I eventually started to feel, okay, I feel like I am looking down. I feel like I'm seeing that this is happening. I'm feeling where it is in my body, bringing in awareness, but I'm not embodying anymore. Mindfulness, that was the first thing. Secondly, we started working on self-kindness. And how I did that was literally what I have in the journal, the evidence from the day before, or the positive quality associated with that evidence. And like that, the negative core beliefs that I had ingrained in myself was, I'm not social, I'm withdrawn, I am really irritable, I'm low all of the time. But I started to break them down using evidence from the day before. Like I said, Niamh, the example that I pulled down with you, I went for a walk with Niamh, maybe I am a little bit social. And I started chipping away at that, and I did that persistently. I was hooked on it, I was doing it every day. And connectedness then, she really went through, she kept saying to me, you're not in control of everything. You don't have control of everything. And Chloe, it is okay that you are feeling all of these things. Do you realise the tremendous psychological trauma that you were left with as a result of all of this? You nearly lost your life. You could, you know what I mean? It was, and so I started to feel a bit better. I started to feel a bit lighter. And I remember we went on a walk, Niamh, and I said to you, Niamh, I think this is the first time in the last 5 years that I felt like myself. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that?
I remember.
Yeah. And you were like, what do you mean? And I was like, I started to feel like myself again. And I became really interested in this. And I said, like, what is this? This is amazing. You know what I mean? And I started doing a bit of research. And what I now know is self-compassion, mindfulness, self-kindness and connectedness. And the end of 2022, I got the news that I needed another spinal surgery, and I was devastated. I really was. But again, I started to, I was like, look, it's okay to feel this. I gave myself everything that I needed, self-compassion. And I said, look, I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to get a journal that focuses on self-compassion. And I'll use this throughout the whole experience because I know what's coming is going to be really hard. And there wasn't one. And I was like, okay, right. So I started drafting one. And I sent it on to my therapist, and I said, what do you think? And I said, my ma just tell me. And she said, I'm taking the first ticket when you're on the Late Late Show.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
And I was like, I was laughing. But
well, I'll take the second one now, just after hearing that story.
So, yeah, it just took flight. And that's where it came from. Like, the passion behind Compassionate Co, it's because I've done it. And I think that if it... I received these diagnoses, the depression and the PTSD. And for me, to deal with all of the residual symptoms I had day to day from that, self-compassion allowed me to do that. Being mindful that, okay, I am feeling this way, but I am not this way, and I had control over how I reacted to the emotions that I was feeling, I broke down the negative core beliefs that I had about myself. And then I reiterated, I'm not alone in this, and it's okay. It's okay to be really struggling at the moment because you've been through a really hard time.
Yeah.
And it literally just changed my life. It really did, and I don't say that lightly. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because if it can help me, like I say, some of that, I was on that really far end side of the psychological trauma scale, and I have regained my life, my happiness. I can't describe the impact that it has had. Imagine the impact that it can have for people day to day. When they're feeling difficult emotions, they allow themselves to feel, they start breaking down those negative core beliefs and self-critiquing voice that they have in their head. And all throughout that time, I taught myself, oh, Chloe, you're not doing enough. You're not socialising enough. You're not, making enough of an effort with the friends in college. Not for a second giving myself a bit of compassion that PTSD, that's what happens when you are diagnosed with that. You become really withdrawn in that. So it's something that I'm really passionate about from experience. And it works. Oh my God, does it work? And I want, the main objective of Compassion Co, like I said in the beginning, to bring awareness to the concept of self-compassion. Yeah. And if people can learn it, become familiar with it, I said that the literature shows that it leads to increased happiness, increased life satisfaction. It does. It absolutely does. Being kinder to ourselves, that sense of connection with everybody else, and we're not alone, and bringing that awareness to how we feel. It's powerful. It really is.
I can't imagine what it must be like to go through something like that. That's just so huge.
Huge. Yeah, it was horrendous. I'm not going to lie. Do you know what I mean? It was really, really scary, and the fear that I felt, and I know I say being 19, it doesn't really matter if it's any age. It was the series of events where we don't know where you're going to make it. It was really serious. They said another 4 hours and I would have been gone. That was the reality of it. And then when I got over that, it was, are you going to have a permanent stoma? When I got over that, it was, you have a serious infection. Again, we don't know how to treat this. We've one antibiotic left to do, and if this doesn't work, we don't know what we're going to do here. And then when I eventually got all over that, and in the midst of all this, I had an unstable fracture in my back. So, it's fun, like the polar opposites in this situation. I was in this peak fight or flight all of the time, and I was told, Chloe, you have to stay still. Oh, wow. And because of the nature of the injury in your back, if you move, you are probably going to be paralysed. And that burden on my shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
Awful.
You wouldn't want to breathe.
It's awful, like being petrified.
And I had to lay in the flat of my back for almost 5 weeks. Almost 5 weeks. So it was, the mental burden of that as well. But the whole situation, it was really hard. It was really, really difficult. And it was horrendous. Like, even when you were there for the whole step of the, or for every step of the way with it. Like, it was been really hard to watch as well. So I know we've spoken about this.
And for your family too, for your parents, everybody. Like, there's a trauma there for everyone in that space.
Yeah. But thankfully, I've come out. A lot of people don't, and I do. Look, this is that's something that I could probably go into another day. Is the trauma after accidents? People will focus a lot on the physical aspects of things, but the mental burden that comes with it is huge. And I like that for people that are involved, family, friends, watching, experiencing. Like, it's tremendous. Tremendous.
I also there's another piece, I suppose, and it's just around what a family goes through when this happens, when an accident like this happens and someone survives, but also when they don't. I'm just thinking of my own family and the trauma that you just don't know where to go with it. So what I'm loving about what you're saying, I'm so sorry it's happened. It's but that you have this kindness that you want to then share with other people, to be kind and to help them. I'm just blown away. I've tingled from the minute I didn't know your story, so just for the listeners to know, this is my first time hearing it, but I'm really moved by it. It's tapping into some of the pieces I know from a distance. I don't know it closely, but that your strength and your kindness towards others as a result of it is blowing me away. I just want to say that to you.
Yeah,
that's it.
Very moved by that.
It's taking something awful and doing as much good as you possibly can with it. Not just for yourself, but trying to share that then as well.
Yeah, and I actually said this to you, Zanya, before, that I feel like, while I wouldn't go through the situation again, it was horrendous, but I almost feel like, and I've said this to a few people, I feel like it was almost for something.
Yeah.
If it's going to help other people and if it's going to bring in awareness, and there's so many people messaging me saying, oh my God, like even that I use the example of the child that last day on my stories on Instagram. We all need caressing in difficult times. And a woman messaged me, she was like, that's just like an aha moment. I do this with my kids, but I don't do it to myself. And it's something that sometimes I think you just need to hear these things. And we all know them, but it's just to say, oh yeah, and how do I do that? You know, and it's to break down how you do it. But I do feel, this year I feel like everything has kind of come together for me, you know, all of the horrendous aftermath of and the struggle after the accident, and you know, obviously then my research skills, and I wasn't 100% sure what area of public health I wanted to go into, and I ended up going into health research heavily, and being able to interpret all of the literature that's out there, and you know, while this the journal contents obviously are based on my own experience, they do align with the literature, the evidence base is there, a lot of literature done on it, and being able to draw on those skills to make it all come together, you know, and to use it then to filter into mental health promotion. Yeah,
but it's really practical, and I know we've talked about the journal, but it's pragmatic, so it gets you to think about. It goes. I think I said this to you. It goes a layer deeper.
It does,
because it asks you to look for an example of what you're saying, or to look for an example where you were working on what you want to work at, and it gives you a sense of achievement as you do it. I think that's really cool, actually.
Yeah, 100%. It does ask you, the journal definitely does ask you to dig deeper, and the concept, you know, and when you do start to feel the benefits of it, you know, the mindfulness, self-kindness and connectedness, when you do start to become self-compassionate, you say, geez, I can, like, I'm able to do this. And, you know, it's a real sense of, there's a real sense of fulfillment when you do learn it as a concept, because like you can use it as a tool to self-regulate. And I think that, you know, there's been a lot of there's been some RTTs on mindful self-compassion programs, and they found that people that work on self-compassion have an increased ability to emotionally regulate, because I suppose you're tapped into what you are feeling, and and looking at the emotions from the sky down, and
makes sense.
It makes sense. It does. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, but it's just to piece it together and to break it down.
Yeah. It is, but I think there's an important part around this about probably a bit of consistency as well. Like, it's like, I mean, I'm on my way towards, I'm using the journal, I'm on my way towards it, and I'm loving it. Great, I really am.
Great, yeah.
And you know that.
Yeah.
But like, I can see sometimes in this, or even other things, because breathwork, I know we've spoken about, like, we can chat a little bit about that, because you're trained to be a breathwork facilitator as well. But like, even when I've tried practicing that, if I don't do these things that I know that ground me and that I know help me to be more mindful, to be more self-compassionate, if I feel I haven't, you know, because if I've had a busy week or something and I've just been like, oh, I'll put that away now, I won't bother doing that, I'm tired now, I'm going to go to sleep, or I'm going to whatever, the following week I'll feel much worse, and I'd be more irritable, or you know, and I can see that in myself when I don't do these things. So I think there's a piece about it as well of, like, it probably won't be the day you start doing it, you know, that it's going to,
you won't be overwhelmed.
Exactly.
I am so compassionate now. There definitely is work in it, but it is really, it's worth it, you know. And like I mentioned that earlier, that I would say as frequently as you can, but definitely 3 to 5 times a week. I would encourage, just for, you know, just to really get into it. And like, it's like anything, you know, the more frequent you do it, the better. And on that, Niamh, I would just say, you know, I actually said this as well on Instagram before, that I think that for a new habit, attach it to something you already have in place. So for instance, with us, we go for a walk every morning at 7:30. You could set the alarm for 10 past. Get up, do a journal entry, or do your breathwork, whatever else you're thinking, or whatever you want to integrate into your daily life. And it does make it a little bit easier to integrate that. For me, my journaling was in the evening time. That was something that I didn't have, and I started just integrating it. And attaching it to a habit that's already in place is a really effective
that's a very good piece of
technique. Yeah. And that makes it more sustainable then, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's something that you're going to continue to do, rather than just give yourself one boost of kind of and forget about it again.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So I'm struck with your journey, and there's such a resilience in it, and I mean, where did you get where does that come from? There's a strong survival, positive, focused piece to you as a result of your experience. But some people don't. Some people don't come back up from PTSD. So where do you think that comes from in you?
I think that as a person, I've just always been driven. Or, you know, even when I was growing up as a teenager in school, I was driving for good marks. And then when I did really take up, I got into running when I was in 5th year, and I was doing long distance running before I was in the accident. I was running 10K, and that was something I was really committed to. I think that that's something that it's probably a personality thing with me. Do you know what I mean? I just had that drive. And even when I was feeling, even after the accident, when I was feeling that low and that I always wanted, I had that need, I had that want. I wanted to get back to the way I was. I wanted to get back to who I knew I was. And it's probably stubbornness, to be honest.
Well, that's okay.
I didn't want to accept that I now was this new person that I didn't really know.
Yeah.
So I think it's personality with me. And that, just drive. It's always been something that I have had ingrained in me, I suppose, even since I was a child. Yeah. Never gave up. No,
it's huge.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so important for us as human beings in the world to bring our experience to making it better for other people.
Absolutely.
I mean, what an amazing world we would have if we all did that. So that's really coming out from what you're trying to do here, which I really like.
Absolutely.
It's very impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Delighted.
I know, I do. I just think there's so many times where we can help other people by making something of the experience that we have.
Yeah.
And there's a healing piece in it too, isn't there? Like
there is.
To do something with it.
Yeah, and Compassion Co, it just gives me, and I said this to my dad, I've never felt so passionate about something.
It's cool.
And it's because it's my learned experience as well, you know what I mean? And, obviously I know that it works and all that, but I want to help other people. Like I want, and I want people to learn that they can self-help by doing this. And it's a tool that you can learn, and it's just amazing. It really, it is, and I think that the passion behind it, Yeah, and it's not just passion, it's research and it's a knowledge base from health promotion. Yeah. There's quite a bit behind it. It's a really good blend to have. Yeah.
It's quite special.
Yeah. And that was really important, like my research background, to have everything aligned with the evidence and making sure that it was strong evidence. And I knew then, I was like, I'm onto something here, like this works, there's been more CTs done on this, and that, while I knew it worked in me, that gave it that further layer of validation for me. There was the research to back it up, so passion paired with expertise.
Yeah, we like it. Passion paired with expertise.
Yeah,
we like it.
So,
but you are like, you just light up. Like I remember the first time you said to me, we were in your sitting room, but it was like
post recovery. I was like, Niamh, this is my new project.
But it was like you opened your mouth. You could just see that everything had just come. All of the ideas around it came together, and you were just like, you could actually see your face lighting up talking about it. And I was just like jaw dropped, and I was like, I love it.
And it's probably the public health and health promotion coming out in me as well, that health behaviour change and empowering people to do it, and that's really important.
But that's it. That's what you say. Like it's everything. It's all your experiences, your knowledge, and your expertise, and it's everything coming together in one.
That's it. Yeah. So it's exciting.
So what's next for Compassionate Co? I know, as I said just a little bit earlier, I know that you're working on doing some breathwork facilitation as well.
I am.
That's one thing.
The breathwork is, I've recently trained in that. That was something that I would have done myself, simplistic techniques, but it was really helpful just to calm down the emotional state if you were feeling really overwhelmed. And I trained in that recently. So I'm going to be running classes the end of August, start of September. Yeah, a course, potential pop-up classes throughout the summer as well in Killarney. Breathwork is excellent for improving mindfulness.
Yeah, would you tell us a little bit about, just in case people aren't familiar with it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's basically bringing a conscious awareness to our breath. And in the world that we live in today, our brains are permanently in overdrive mode. We're always in that go. And we're thinking about the next thing and what we need to do, what we haven't done, whatever. So breathwork, it's it encourages you to sit in the present moment, do some mindful body scans, really bring awareness to our bodies and to ourselves. And it is primarily focusing on the breath, obviously. And it's a little bit different to, breathwork is a little broader than meditation because, you know, there's varying breathwork techniques. We can use breathwork for energizing. We can use breathwork, we can do some breathwork retention, so to challenge our breath, to increase our breathing activity during exercise. And then we can also use it for deep relaxation. And it's a really good technique towards improving mindfulness because it's not forcing you, it's asking you to go into your body and to bring awareness to what's going on in your body in that moment. So it's guided and it brings you through improving mindfulness, I suppose. So it'll be, that's really the concept that it focuses on and that it draws on in relation to self-compassion.
And isn't it amazing how shallow we breathe and we don't even realise it?
Yeah,
you know, we have no idea until you really begin to reflect on it or you begin to pay attention to it. You realise, actually, I'm at the up here.
Yeah, and we all breathe like that. We all breathe from, you know, our chests, and we should be breathing from our diaphragm ideally. And that's actually a fundamental part of breathwork, is bringing that awareness to the mechanism of breath, to take a profound breath and really using that diaphragm to open up the lungs and exhale out, you know. And it's really powerful. It really is. It's a really good technique towards improving mindfulness, to calm down that nervous system if you're engaging in long, slow, deep, for example. It's a breathwork technique. And it would make you think, you know, about like that. It just brings that awareness to, I'm breathing really shallow right now, you know, and I'm feeling stressed and the shallow breath isn't really helping me. So let's take a long, slow, deep breath and really calm yourself down, you know. So it's excellent. It's really, really good. Like I said, recently trained and looking forward to the classes at the end of the summer. So that's something that's on the horizon for Compassionate Co. Yeah.
Down in the kingdom, obviously.
Down in the kingdom, we wouldn't be anywhere else.
Delighted to hear that.
Looking forward to it. I think it'll be amazing. I think there's so much. Like, I think breathwork can do so much for you. Like, even this isn't even, well, I suppose it is, I suppose, breathwork, but it's the smallest thing ever. Over lockdown, I had never done yoga, and I just went on such a yoga kick over lockdown, because you know the way you're just trying to get
everything.
something that'd make you feel that you weren't sat down all day, or, you know, just stretch yourself out and whatever. So I was mad doing it, but I was doing it with I used to just watch YouTube videos from Yoga with Adrian.
Oh yeah, she's really good.
But she always says something, like, not in every video or anything, but like she always says, you know, take the deepest breath you've taken all day. And that's something that I always do. If I'm finding, like, it's such a small thing, and that was from yoga, so I'm saying it's not even breath work, but like, if I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed, or if I'm just feeling like, do you know, you just need some sort of release, or just to reground yourself or whatever, it's like, take the deepest breath you've taken all day. And if you're having the worst day in the world and you have to do it 3 times, the third time can still be the deepest breath that you've taken all day. You can always do it, you know, and it's just literally 3 seconds, or, you know, however long it takes. But even something as small as that can make such a difference. Not to mind, you know, the actual practices that come with breathwork.
No, they're amazing, really and truly they are. And again, that's another tool. Like, it touches on self-compassion, but it's a really good tool to learn, you know. And I have posted some breathwork techniques on Compassionate Co, and I've had, you know, a health and wellbeing coordinator in the school. She's always sharing it. She has a career plan page. My career plan is the name of her page, and she to be sharing, saying, this is really good for exam stress, and you know, just
that's great,
because you can become really overwhelmed in those kind of situations, and it's really good just to have that thing for 4. Hold for 4, out for 4. You know, it's really, really good thing to learn.
I'm really excited for that, and to see
where Compassionate
Co goes, because the journal is only part of a bigger conversation that you're opening up, which is really exciting.
And I'm actually starting a mindful self-compassion course
in your spare time.
2 weeks time. So as if I haven't enough going on, but I'm break from the masters for 3 months, so I'm starting that now over the summer. Brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to delving deeper into it, and let's see what has to be.
I'm wishing you the very, very best with that. I think it's it's powerful work, and I mean that. I mean that word. It is powerful for our lives to take that space and to reflect and to breathe
Absolutely.
and to think and to feel.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool.
Thanks so much.
Okay, all right. We go into our 3 questions.
Let's go for it.
Oh yeah.
Right. A leader. I forgot to tell Chloe about the questions. As well.
I know we did that to the Goodness as well. They were like, okay,
But anyway, a leader that inspires you and why?
So I think I'd have to go with Christian Neff on this. She is a lady that has done huge amounts of research on self-compassion.
Okay.
And she really is the leader in the field. She would 100% be a leader that inspires me. And she has actually developed a mindful self-compassion program. So she's definitely my answer for that. She's amazing. Yeah, so much research done on it. And she opened up the field of it, really, to be honest. Yeah.
You have to look her up, yeah.
Do. Her papers are excellent. Yeah.
So when you look back over your journey so far, I think the probably answer to this might be no, because it sounds amazing what you've done. But is there anything you do differently? Anything you'd change?
I think I just wish I learned self-compassion sooner. To be honest.
Yeah, fair point.
I for years I just continued to self-critique, even though I was going through all of those different emotions. And if I had learned it sooner.
Yeah.
No, look. Yeah, I think that's my thing.
it's a
I
very
wouldn't
good
change
point.
anything else. I don't think. Yeah, it's all while it has been a real bumpy road, it's been a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all part of the journey. As
It's all part
cliche
of
and
it.
all as it
And
sounds,
yeah.
it's true.
It's been my journey. you
Yeah.
know, so it has led me to where I am today. So yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but self-compassion earlier, I think
Yeah.
many will relate to that. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one piece of advice that you would give to someone.
I would say follow compassionate go. And that's not giving myself, but really, if you're interested in the concept, I do delve into it. I break down, my content over on my social media over the next couple of weeks. It's breaking down the concept of self-compassion, and I give out really good every Wednesday. I have a Wellbeing Wednesday, so I give out techniques on how you can improve self-compassion, different breathwork techniques, etc. So challenging that negative inner self-critic, that's one that I posted as well. So if you're interested on embarking on the journey, give compassion a go follow and see if it's something that you'd be.
Yeah,
that would
Absolutely. I second that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll third it now.
Yeah.
And we put up the details with the episode
Yeah.
and stuff like that, because I
Brilliant.
think it's I completely agree with you. And I was talking to someone else about this recently, the pace of life.
It's
Everyone is
hectic.
like, and we just need to find ways that help us stop up.
Absolutely.
Um,
Bring us back to present.
Yeah, because we can't keep accelerating. We're just
No.
going to get,
Yeah.
So I love anything that gets us back to ourselves. And I mean that, back
Absolutely.
to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's
What
what you're
we
trying
need.
to do.
That's
Love it.
Yeah. Thank you so
we
much.
love it.
Oh, thank you, Chloe. Thank
It's
you.
been fab. Thank you so much for having me on.
That's brilliant to
Well,
have
look,
you.
Yeah.
We'll be watching this space with real interest and the developments, and hopefully doing a few classes, and wishing
That's
you
it.
absolutely every success
Thank you so
that
much.
comes your way, because you completely deserve it.
Thank you. I appreciate
Absolutely. I already have a space saved in the breathwork.
it. Yeah. He is my first client in the door.
Brilliant.
Knocking on the door, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chloe.
Brilliant.